There's a list of reasons that we're not living our life to the fullest, and I think there's a lack of introspection. When there's a traumatic event, the memory really absorbs it all. Scarface story. We were the outcast. We were on this boat for 12 hours. There weren't enough life jackets. It was bad. 4 of those hours was a horrible storm.
Most of the time, we're not aware of these limitations, these traumas. How do you see the path to awareness when you experience something like this?
Most people, I believe, live in a state of anesthesia. That might be through drugs, alcohol, social media, you name it. We want to be safe, so we never do this thing. And by not doing that thing, we're stressed out because it doesn't allow us to accomplish our goals. If you're in a silo without a group of partners that are helping you reveal those things, you're not going to discover it. 2 words just kept coming out: accountability and brotherhood. We brought like-minded men who have their ego in check, who want to just keep getting better.
We're always told, be strong, don't cry, don't show emotion, don't show vulnerability, that's weakness. During this program, what were some of the top challenges that you see men going through?
Not expressing themselves, feeling alone in this world. That's why they're looking for these accountability partners. And we're building this all-star team. As of today, it's 78 guys. I'm changing the world in my ecosphere. I'm not rewarded by money anymore. Now what I do, I get to build relationships to help people, to see them along on their ride, see them get to the next level. To me, that's the most rewarding thing.
Hello, Joel, welcome. You're actually one of the first people that I met when I joined EO, and that was back in 2021, which was about almost over 3 years ago. And I remember you reached out to me when you saw that I was a new member, and you started a conversation. We got on a Zoom call, and I think that outreach, that level of attention, that level of networking, and the ability to just meet people and hear their side of story is one of the strengths that you have. So talk to us about your background a little bit. How did you get into things? I know you're not originally from South Florida. We would love to hear your story, a little bit of what you've done so far.
First of all, thanks for having me. One of the proudest accomplishments in my life is in my 3rd grade yearbook, and I still have that. I don't have a lot of mementos. I don't have a lot of things. I'm kind of a minimalist. But I have a picture where I was voted by my peers friendliest in 3rd grade. And as I think back, I remember whenever any new kid would come, I always felt bad for them because they didn't have any friends, or I saw anyone playing by themselves at lunch, I'd go grab them and bring them to be my friend and play with us and introduce them to everyone. I've never stopped doing that. I love building communities. I think when we are old, let's say when we're 100 years old and we're toward the very end of our life, we're going to potentially regret a few things, not taking care of our body, not being with our family and spending time. Another one is not having built a beautiful community of people around us that we want influencing us, and hopefully we can influence them in good ways. So maybe that's what's in my mind, and maybe that's why I reached out. And I try to do that. If I find good people, I want them to be part of my circle. And the better they are and the more we jive, the more closer I want them in that circle. So about me, my history, born in Cuba and communist country. Now it's even worse because it's only gotten, after the connection with the Soviet Union went away, everything's gotten even worse than it has. But it was bad enough that my parents wanted to get out. And see what happened in the 1960s. In 1967, my grandparents on my dad's side had an opportunity to leave the country, and they did, with all the kids, except for one, my dad. 17 years old, they would not allow him to leave. That's military age, but he wasn't selected for the military. He was sent to a forced labor camp. 3-year sentence, cut sugarcane in the Cuban sun, no air conditioning. Some days he had no food. They'd give him a cup of water with sugarcane that he cut himself, and that's what he would have. They almost killed him after 9 months, so they sent him home because he was not useful to them. They sent him to go get training in something else. And he went home and he was by himself, 17 years old, no parents, no siblings, everybody's gone. And so my dad lived there, grew up, got married, had my brother, had me. And finally, in 1980, we were able to come here during the Mariel boat lift, Scarface story. And that's when we came here, landed in Key West. And I always mention this because to me, it's an impactful moment. It's a traumatic moment in my life. We were on this boat for 12 hours after spending a couple of days in a camp with very little food, drinking water out of a hose and bathing with that same hose. And a lot of people, because remember, we were the outcasts. We wanted to leave, and the government that moment opened the doors and said, you can leave. They weren't going to treat us well. They didn't treat their own citizens well. These are the people leaving. So we waited for a couple of days. We got on this boat. We filled it to double the capacity that was listed. If it was 75 people, there was 150. There weren't enough life jackets. It was bad. And here's why I mention this. I have a serious fear of the ocean. And I have a serious fear of even water just above my head in a swimming pool. I get stressed out. And it's because I think we spent these 12 hours on this rickety boat, and 4 of those hours was a horrible storm that the boat would go up and you'd see sky, and then it'd go down and you'd see 4 walls of water, and there was screaming, crying, yelling. I remember you go down the little stairs, there's a little tiny bathroom and a bed there, and there was a pregnant woman, 9 months pregnant. I believe our boat was called Carolina. It was an American boat that came to pick us up, and that lady said she was going to name, if she made it and she had a daughter, she was going to name her Carolina. So there's some Carolina out there today named for that boat. And that woman probably had more of an impact on her than me, but it was rough as a little kid. I didn't know if we were going to die. I didn't know what to think that. But now my mom shares the story of she kept praying to God for forgiveness because here she is holding her 2 boys and convinced we were going to die. We were about to go out under and drown, and it hurt her so bad that she made this decision to bring us. Mm-hmm. It worked out. We're here.
Yeah. Yeah. And how old were you when that happened?
4.5 years old. And the next question is, do you remember? I have a very good memory. Mm-hmm. I don't think I'm the smartest person, but I have a very good memory of a lot of details. And I learned in psychology class, and that made sense to me later in high school, that when there's a traumatic event, the memory really absorbs it all, mm-hmm. right? When you're falling and you know you're about to hit your face because you fell off that bicycle, you remember it in slow motion. It's not that it's slow motion, you remembered every click of that camera that's in here, and so you remember it all very well. So yeah, I remember that boat going up. I remember that boat going down. I remember the screams, the crying. I have memories of Cuba, our house, our neighborhood, our grandmother's house, the little store on the corner, the kids in the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I do remember things.
Mm-hmm. And how often does that memory come to you? Does it come to you when people like myself ask you questions, or do you just in your regular life, do you go back to that moment when you have certain specific experiences when we talk about something traumatic like that, a traumatic beginning, let's call it?
Yeah, that's a pretty early on beginning memory. It comes up for sure when I bring it up, obviously, and it came up this morning. I led a group of men in a workout at my house. I have a full gym there, pretty full gym, and then we jump in the pool, and then we go in the ice, and then we go hot tub and all that. But I was explaining to them that I have a fear of the ocean, but it extends to a swimming pool when I can't touch the bottom. And I was showing them where. I go, when I get in this spot right here, it brings a lot of things back. Even though I didn't get thrown off that boat, the thought was there that it could happen. And even though my pool is pretty calm, it's still there. So there are many times I get on any boat, I go to the beach, I go to the ocean, I see on TV, deep water. Now, I didn't leave it at that. I love challenges, and I love improving, and I love just working towards stuff. When I realized this was a problem about a year ago, I hired a therapist to work through things with me and to talk. I thought this was crazy, but I did the exercise and it worked. To talk to that inner little Joel and imagine him in the swimming pool and me treading water with him and say, hey, it's going to be fine. Look, you made it to this age. This is your house. This is your yard. Look how things are going to be great. And I did this for just a few weeks. And then the next step was to go to get scuba certified. So last summer, I went and got scuba certified, went underwater. I couldn't believe my first dive was 45 minutes the whole time. I was like, who am I? How am I here? How am I doing this? The fear is still there, but I can control it a little bit and work on it.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny you mention it like that because you're aware of this, right? You're very aware of what you went through and you're very aware of what your limitations regarding that specific challenge is. Another thing that we had discussed with a friend of mine is most of the time we're not aware of these limitations. We're not aware of these traumas. I know that you work with a group of men. Talk to us about what your experience is about awareness, because I think that's a big part of it. I think a lot of people are just unaware, or it's more subconscious, and they're limited and they can't see the next step because they're so buried in that subconscious feeling. How do you see the path to awareness when you experience something like this with an individual that might be stuck somewhere?
So I think that we have free will. We could do whatever we want. However, we are within a confinement. Genetically and historically, we are a line of people, right? And there may be something 50 years ago, 100 years ago, we weren't alive, but that person behaved a certain way, and that trickled down to us. So we have some things about us that, I don't know, they're not multi-generational trauma, maybe they are, but we are the product of people before us, right? So I think that comes into play. So it's definitely not nurtured, it's nature. It came through to us and we never even met that person, so we act a certain way. And then we have traumas that got us here. Or we have just a way of being. We want to be safe, so we never do this thing. And by not doing that thing, we're stressed out because it doesn't allow us to accomplish our goals. Because if we really want to accomplish those goals, we got to do some of these things. But then you're living in this world of fear. Most people, I believe, live in a state of anesthesia. That might be through drugs, alcohol, social media, you name it. There's a list of reasons that we're not living our life to the fullest. And I think there's a lack of introspection. Because if you're on social media, if you're working all day, if you're in a silo without a group of partners that are helping you reveal those things, you're not going to discover it. Now, when you have a coach, a mentor, a psychologist who's proactive, not just listening to your problems, but proactive with you to find solutions, especially for guys that we want those solutions. We don't necessarily just want to vent. We want to improve the problem that we're having. Then I think we start discovering some things about us. I'm really big into holding people accountable, asking them a lot of questions, and then seeing what comes out of it. So if you were to tell me over and over the reason you're not accomplishing this thing, but yet you're telling me you want to do this thing, whatever that might be, I'm going to ask a lot of questions. And deep down, after maybe 20 questions, 20 why is that important? Why is that the case? Why do you believe that? I might hear something that you say and maybe you don't catch it, but I get to jot that one down. And when the time's right, I go, Duran, you told me this, this, and this. And sometimes that enables the person to realize, maybe that's it. Maybe that's the part that I need to change. Maybe that's where I have to think differently. You know, this isn't about some woo-woo, just throw positive things out there and they're going to come back. Yeah, throw some positive thoughts out there, do the work, and then I think the results will come.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned social media, you mentioned outside substances like alcohol and drugs. In my experience, work could be a drug as well. You could be addicted to something that you think is actually good for you, right? That's almost the definition of addiction, in my opinion. Do you think all of these things now make us weak?
Well, we're going to find out. You know, the circular argument of good times make weak men make soft times or hard times, and then hard time create strong men, and you keep going around. I think we're in a cycle where we're getting weak. Think about what our ancestors went through. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans have occupied this earth, right, potentially, and they had to struggle. And who survived? The absolute strongest. The weak people died as babies because they didn't have medicine and they didn't have the modern technology that we have to help them. But if you weren't hardworking, you got kicked out of the tribe. You're not producing for the community, let's say a 150-person tribe. You all know each other very well, and you grow the corn, and I'll tend to the sheep, and we're all going to help each other, and you do nothing. You're not valuable. You're probably going to get kicked out, and you're going to die on your own. I think we live in a society that's very soft. First of all, you don't have to work. We're going to guarantee you money by taking it from people who work and giving it to people who don't want to work. Now, I'm all for helping people who are hurt, injured, brain problems, old people, babies, help them all. But you and I, we're grown men. We're in our 40s. We could work. We should be producing for society. But we don't have to. We could get by right now off of other people. And as long as we keep doing that, I think we are getting weak. And sitting around looking at a telephone. Imagine a few thousand years ago if we were cavemen and you told me you sit in the cave all day. When do you catch the food? When do you work? Now, today we're in a cubicle and maybe you're working, and that's okay. You're producing for society, and I think that's great. But you should get out and get a little bit of sunlight. You should go run a sprint or two or jog around the block every once in a while. You should do some push-ups, right? You should eat meat, I think, and get strong and feel like a human. That's why we had these teeth. It's not for chewing leaves necessarily only. It's for living like we used to do. I try to live that way. I try to remind myself that I'm the result of people who worked really hard and who were really strong and suffered to get me here. So when I sit in a chair too long, I feel guilty to my great-great-great-great-grandparents who say, well, what's this guy doing in a chair all day? He's getting weak. We fought all that and survived to die, to pass him on, and that's what he's doing. So to me, I want to remember what we're built for and why we're on this earth. And It's to not be weak, I think.
I'm a first-generation immigrant. I came to the States a little differently. I came as an international student. But I went through a lot of challenges. I didn't have an uncle or cousins or family here, right? And I always say this, I didn't really have a lot of luxury to make a lot of mistakes due to the fact that I had nobody to rely on. If I failed at anything or if I fell down, it would be me who would pick up. And I believe that you went through a similar challenge, even though you arrived here with your parents. And this is millions of people. Again, we still have the cycle of immigration, right? That challenge that you went through, the trauma that you went through, how do you think it has shaped your success or your path as an entrepreneur or as a business person?
Yeah, that pressure that was on as a child, and it got developed over experiences. So I'll give you an example. When my parents would speak to me in Spanish, I've never spoken one word of English to my parents, obviously, in front of kids in school, they laughed. You know, I did not grow up in South Florida where that would have been normal to hear Spanish. I grew up in California, but where I grew up, it wasn't all Spanish. And so I remember getting laughed at, that my parents didn't speak the language. I remember feeling different. Why? Because I would have pants that you could see where they got hemmed and then got released, and you could see the line, and you could see multiple lines because I'd have to wear them a little bit longer as I grew. I wore Payless shoes, non-branded, fake tennis shoes. And kids will make you notice all of these things. I didn't know. I'm not a brand person. I was a kid. But they'd all point these things out. And so a lot of reminders for me were, I'm not from here. I'm standing out in a bad way. And I want to stand out in a good way. And how do I do that? I got to push. And so early on that happened. I didn't want to get made fun of. I wanted to just fit in and be a normal kid. And that wasn't going to happen. I spoke different. I didn't speak very good English for the first few years. I was always the different kid. So that made me have to push a little harder, think outside the box, be creative, start hustling at an early age and make money. In fourth grade, I was making $40 a month profit, selling trading cards and anything I can get my hands on that would make money, and I've never stopped. So maybe that all got injected in my head, and I could have gone one of two ways. I could have been a recluse and I could have hidden myself and not pushed and made excuses. Maybe that could have happened. Maybe it wasn't even my choice. Maybe it was something that got triggered in my head that I said, I don't want to feel this way anymore. What do I have to do about it? What can I do? What are the opportunities? And I had my eyes open. Sometimes it'd be nice to turn it off, but the brain is always going, right? As I go anywhere, I say, oh, they could probably turn that business around a little better if they did this. So it never stops. And again, I don't know if that's as natural. I would have been that way, whether I would have been born here or not, but it got exaggerated through the experiences of being a kid and feeling like something was wrong and I need to fix myself.
And talk to us about the businesses that you have built. As much as I remember, you had a very, very niche business, very niche, very successful business. How did all of these experiences that you went through as a child really shape you to build these businesses or even think about establishing these businesses?
Well, building a business or establishing it was to get out of poverty. I looked at TV shows. In the 80s, there was a show called Silver Spoons. And this kid, Ricky Schroeder, was rich. And he had a little train you can sit on and ride through the house. And kid living in a bad neighborhood with no money. And my parents reminding me all the time, we're poor, we're poor, we're poor. Those were the dreams. So I want to get out of here. One day I want to have all these fancy things. It turns out I became an adult. I didn't really want the fancy things anymore. I wanted the security and I wanted to feel safe and not in a bad neighborhood. And I wanted to be around great people. So that was the catalyst. That's what got me to, I got to make money. And I'll tell you, here's how simple it started. Fourth grade, kids would buy lunch at school and they would buy snacks and they would buy soda. And after school, this is back in the 80s, kids could walk across the street, go to the liquor store, go to the donut shop, everything. Kids would go across the street and buy donuts. And that was my dream. Man, if I gave like 40 cents, I could buy a donut, or 30 cents, whatever it was back then. And I just wanted to have a little bit of pocket money, which my parents never gave me because they couldn't. They bought me some clothes and they gave me food and a roof. Not very many toys. So I always wanted to have something. So that's what got me started. And then it went from there. So as I grew up, it became a little bit bigger. It wasn't the trading cards. It wasn't chocolates only. It became go to garage sales and look for stuff once I could drive. One time I found a guy selling cologne samples. I bought them all for $10 each, took them to the flea market, sold them for $30, because these are $50, $60 bottles in the store back then. And I made, a few $1,000s off of that. But the moment that changed my life is when I found a garage sale with a guy selling jockey underwear. Turns out he was a sales rep. These were his leftover samples at the end of a collection. They're all in the package. And as I'm looking at them, I see they're $13 to $15 each, and he was selling them for $3. Talked them down to $1. I bought about 500 of them. It's everything he had. And I took it to the flea market. I sold them for $3,000. And I said, okay, there's an opportunity there. There's something. The guy called me every 6 months for 11 years and said, Joel, I've got more samples. Now it wasn't 500, it was 1,000 samples, 1,500. He said, I'll buy as many samples as they allow me to buy because I get them for 25 cents and I'll sell them to you for $1. And that was our deal that we did that for 11 years. In the meantime, I'm always looking for opportunities. So I looked for what else can I do because the guy could only sell me X amount of pieces. There wasn't an unlimited supply. So I developed relationships. I found other people who had samples. I found a brand in Mexico that had no presence here really. And I started buying from them, became their distributor, started taking it to trade shows, and little by little started making it into a real business.
And you have exited out of that business now?
I have. Less than a year ago, I sold the company after 20-something years of running it.
How did that feel?
It felt great. I did not have this intention initially to sell it because I always thought, this is great. I'm making money. Why would I ever stop? The last 10 years owning it, two things happened. I got into the 7 figures in EBITDA and I started making money. No partners. It was my money. No debt. So it was all profit. And I started implementing the 4-hour work week by Tim Ferriss that I had read many years ago and thought, how do you do this? I don't understand. You always have to be there. I don't know another way of doing this thing, but I kind of figured it out. And I started working about 4 hours a week. In fact, I had a 5-year stretch there, making 7 figures. I didn't own a computer. I didn't go in. I didn't have a computer. I'd go in to take my employees to lunch. I'd check in with my vice president on WhatsApp and call them. And life was good, but I started realizing it's so not what I want to be doing. I don't really want to own an underwear company. It's not me. And there was another thing. This might not make sense to you because you're a technology guy and you're an expert in that. I felt so out of place. See, I was a flea market guy. I was a wholesale guy that I could sit in a trade show and talk to buyers all day and ask them about their wife, their kids, their vacation, and befriend them and write them handwritten letters and mail. And then they got enamored with me and me with them, and they kept buying more. I love that old school business. That's my era. And once it got complicated, once all this e-commerce and writing software and running a wholesale fulfillment center with our own software, once all of this started happening, I really felt out of place. And I realized that, man, if some young guys got a hold of this thing, they'll make it explode. And maybe I'm not the guy for it. And I'm okay with that. I've made good money. I've saved it. I've invested it. I live way below my means. I don't have to work for the rest of my life. I go, maybe this is the time to bring in a partner. And that was the initial thought. And I put it out there to my network. And then I got a lot of people saying, okay, what's the partnership look like? What's buying it look like? And just between friends, I never listed it with anybody. Between friends, I got enough offers that I went with one of them. And so your question is, how did that feel? My wife told me, look, you always find a way to worry about something. Because I was, decades of stressing out. It was my way of being. And I said, maybe I will stress out. I'll find something new to stress out about. We'll see. So far, we're about 7 months in. I have not found a new thing to stress out about. I feel great. I'm very happy. And I feel like I did my thing. 20-something years of running something, building it. I bought 14 competitors in the process. I saw opportunities where they weren't running it well. And yeah, I'm very happy. I feel very content.
And it sounds like you really enjoyed the relationship side of that business. And now that you have exited, talk to us about what you're doing right now to feed the relationship side of your personality.
Yeah. So when I built relationships in that business, they were sort of for that business, right? And I noticed it because even though I'm very friendly still with everybody in that industry and we stay in touch, it was for that purpose. It was so they'd buy more, right? It was and not that you want to be two-faced. I mean everything I say. If I say you're a great person, I mean that. I'm not trying to get somebody to buy more from me, not at all. If somebody wasn't a great person, I would never say it, right? So I built great relationships there, but they were limited in their capacity. It was for that industry. Now what I do, I get to build relationships just to build them, to help people, to see them along on their ride, see them get to the next level. To me, that's the most rewarding thing. I'm not rewarded by money anymore. Money's cool, and I'm always going to be an entrepreneur. And if I see an opportunity to invest in something, I will. But the motivation now is on my way here. somebody who was in my program, I have a program where I lead men through, wrote me a beautiful message because I challenged him in one of the days in my program is to stop and write a handwritten note by hand, don't type it up, and put it in the mail today and send it to someone. And his was to a friend he hadn't talked to in a little bit. And it was a letter of gratitude because I don't tell him what to write about or who to write it to. And he wrote this, and this person he hadn't talked to in a couple of years received it and called him crying. A grown man called this other grown man crying, thanking him for, I can't believe you're so grateful for our friendship, for how I did help you years ago, blah, blah, blah. It's very simple to do that. But imagine the feeling that guy, everybody won. The guy who received that letter will never forget it. He probably won't throw it away. The guy who sent it is now on top of the world that he has that impact with a tiny little action. And then he tells me about it because he's thanking me for giving him the idea and challenging him to do it. That to me is making $1 million. That message that I got to read is equivalent to making $1 million.
Can you talk to us a little bit about the program that you have?
Yeah, it's called 31dailychallenges.com. This started organically. It wasn't a business. It was me reading someone else's challenge book and doing it myself and enjoying it and inviting a few friends. And pretty soon, before I knew it, by the end of the week, we had 20-something guys, and we all did this together. And I coordinated it, so I set up a WhatsApp channel, and I set up a weekly Zoom. So every day we'd talk in the WhatsApp. We'd set up weekly Zooms. I would throw additional challenges in there, such as, all right, today I want to see who can communicate by phone and have a phone call with as many guys in this group. And we just did a bunch of bonding and team building and all these sort of things. So then it was over, and everybody was sad because it was the Friday morning. It was the last day, and we had the Zoom call, and I always had questions, what'd you get out of this? And 2 words just kept coming out, and I was taking notes, and I circled them, and the whole paper was full of 2 words, accountability and brotherhood. So these men said, I've never felt this way. I've never been held accountable to accomplish so much in such a short time, in a month. And I've never felt this bond. And some of them said, I was in the military. I haven't felt it in 20 years. You brought it back for me. So what happened? We brought like-minded men who have their ego in check, who want to just keep getting better. Because the guy who thinks he's the greatest thing in the world wouldn't do a challenge of getting better. So class 2, a guy said, because we did it again. Oh, they convinced me to do it again. They also convinced me to charge them. And I said, no, there's no fee for this. I don't need the money. And they said, no, let's take it serious. Make it a business, Joel. Do this again. All right, when do you want 2 weeks? Sure. We started 2 weeks from now. Some of them brought their friends. Now we had a bunch of people. And we did it again. But class 2, we named them now. We got a class 1 we did. We'll do class 2. One of the guys said on the finance day, I saved $50,000 repeating in my business that you helped me find because we had some financial challenges to look at your personal finances and your business. And when he saved those $50,000, he said, this can never end. I said, what do you have in mind? What can we do? And he gave me an idea. He said, let's start something. Let's start a group that's a maintenance program to keep this going. By the end of the day, because we're entrepreneurs and we move very fast, we had a name. It's called the Brotherhood. We had a logo made. We had it up on the website on Shopify, and we had 14 guys sign up the first day. And we said, oh, there's something here. And they pay a small monthly fee, and we bring them. Just this week, we brought them Dr. Gary Chapman, the 5 Love Languages, New York Times bestselling author, did an hour with us on Zoom. We invited their spouses, and we had this beautiful talk and questions and answers. I've brought a lot of amazing speakers, authors, doctors, psychologists, therapists, everything that a guy could need, right? And now how do we do that? And how do we build the brotherhood? I get guys to go in through a 31-day challenge, and it challenges them. And I tell them, if you do it and you give it an effort, and I don't change your life in this program, I'll give you your money back. It's $200. I'll give it all back to you. So far, nobody's taken me up on it. Everybody says it's impacted their life, the people who try. And then I take the top people of every class, and I hand select them, and I invite them into the brotherhood to apply. They fill out an application, and then the guys in the brotherhood have to approve them. And we're building this all-star team. As of today, it's 78 guys in 14 months who are in this all-star team. And that's what we're doing. That's how we're changing this planet. It's multi-generational. They tell me, they say, this is impacting my relationship with my kids, and it's going to impact my grandkids because the way I'm leading my life with my kids and my wife and my neighbor and everyone around me, my employees, I'm changing the world in my ecosphere. That to me is so rewarding. And then organically, what happened? All these guys said, I need something for my wife. She says that I'm a new man. How can I do? Can you help her? And I kept saying no. And after about 26 times of no, I told my wife, I've been telling you that all these women keep asking, or their husbands keep asking. My wife's a cancer survivor. abandoned as a child by her parent or her dad, mother of four, labor and delivery nurse. She did that for 10 years until she retired at the age of 30. She's a tough, tough woman, fights in jiu-jitsu, just a tough person, and feminine and beautiful and soft and nice. And she started a program, and now we do that exact same thing, but for women.
During this program, what were some of the top challenges that you see men going through? Because I think this is one thing that we don't discuss often because we don't want to. You know, us men, we're raised, or at least my generation, I'm originally from Istanbul. You grew up when you were little, you grew up with all these challenges in Cuba. We're always told, be strong, don't cry, don't show emotion, don't show vulnerability, that's weakness. We grew up with this. I grew up with this. My father did better than his father. But even today, that message is very, very firm to young boys, which is, this is not what you do. You don't cry. You don't do this. At least in my network. What are some challenges? What are some of the top challenges that you see that men are going through?
That's a big one. Not expressing themselves, feeling alone in this world. That's why they're looking for these accountability partners on a high level. I'm talking accountability partners, and they're going to challenge you and say, hey, did you have that conversation with your wife? Did you tell her she's beautiful? Did you? Might sound simple for a lot of guys. So some of the challenges that may sound easy for you might be really difficult for me. So that day I have you to help me as an accountability partner, as the other group of men in the class. But there's some days that are going to be challenging for you, and that one might be easy for me, and I can help you, and we keep pulling each other up. You've heard the story of you put a bunch of crabs in a bucket, and they hold each other down. That one's about to get out. Well, we're trying to eliminate people that are crabs in our life, and we're trying to be the people meet people on the other side that are helping us out of that bucket. It's very powerful. A challenge, again, could be very easy for one person and very difficult for another. It could be something as simple as the example I said earlier when we brought Dr. Gary Chapman from the 5 love languages. Go online and take your love language test. It's free. And figure out your love language. And then have your wife do it too. And the women do this too. They do it and they have to have their husband do it. And then have a quick conversation about it. See where that leads to. That's huge. Because if your love language is one thing and your wife's is another and you guys aren't communicating, you're not on the same page, that's been an eye-opener. I'm so proud to say that that's been one that's turned around a ton of relationships. Also, not just doing it in a vacuum, but doing it in a whole group. And then there's other things. I mentioned earlier, writing a handwritten note to somebody. It's very powerful. 14 of the companies I bought, 1 was for sale. 13 were not. Those were relationships I built with my competitors, with my vendors, and with my clients. If I bought from this brand and became their distributor and I wholesaled to that website, I ended up buying that brand. I ended up buying that e-commerce website and growing just from little things like writing out a handwritten letter to get the process started. Like that, those are some small examples. There's 31 days of this. And again, not done on your own to be effective. It's done in a group of collaborators.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, you've spoken about trauma, you've spoken about challenges, and we often face difficulties in our business lives as we attempt to build these businesses, grow these businesses, build these relationships, which is a very, very tough skill set that I would say most people do not have. And from a technology standpoint, we're all very distracted. And it's almost like we're geared to make decisions with fear and resentment all the time. That's what the current state of politics, economics, whatever you want to call it, technology warrants us to do. How important do you think is making decisions with love in this kind of environment? Because it's funny, as you walked into the studio, we have a cameraman behind the camera. Eren basically said, wow, Joel is such a nice guy. He's a really, really nice guy. That was the first sentence out of his mouth. How important do you think that is? Just being kind, being loving, working towards a relationship for the sake of that relationship, but not to actually get anything back. Because I think you also mentioned being old-fashioned. Do you think it will be easy for us to go back to that as a society, to go back to the 50s, 60s, when relationships were valuable and it wasn't the 5-second attention span of TikTok videos? Do you think that's our primary challenge, and how difficult do you think that will be?
I've got a challenge in my book where that day it talks about video games and social media. And I go deep into my thoughts on people who are involved too much in those things. And I talk about how the last time I held a controller in my hand and played a video game, I was 16 years old. Why? Because at that point I had to go work because I was financially independent from 16 years old on. Once I got a car, my dad passed me down a broken down old car that I drove for a few months till it broke down, but I had to pay the insurance and I had to buy my lunch and I had to do these things. I had to become a man. I'm so glad that my parents put me in a situation, forced, but I had to go produce because I didn't fall victim of that mind trap of video games that could happen, right? You see grown men who are spending 20 hours a week playing video games while their wife is over there wishing she had a husband that attended to her, while their neighbor could use a little bit of help. But nope, he's busy here either watching video games or social media, which is its ugly step brother, right? They're both very similar in that they suck you in. Another one, I think it's all noise. Another one is the news. I haven't watched one news report, not one. During COVID, I didn't watch one news report because that to me is poison. I don't take drugs, I don't take alcohol, I don't take anything that's gonna hurt my body. It's all I have, I get one of them. Why would I take it in through my brain that's gonna affect my health and all of these things? So I don't know what's going on in the world, but I'll tell you what, I know that our cameraman is studying computer science, and I know where he goes to school, and I know how long he's been in this country, and I know his relations, and all, just from a little bit that I heard. To me, that's more valuable than knowing about a war going on anywhere else, or knowing about someone who can do some sexy dance online. I care about people, and great, that's resulted in making millions of dollars from great relationships. Okay, that's a great byproduct. I don't do it for that purpose. I care about that person. I'm gonna say hello to the CEO of the bank in a meeting the exact same way that I'm gonna say it to the guy cleaning the floor in the bank. I don't care, they're a human being, right? Now, if that CEO is a dirty, rotten person, I won't invite him to my house, but I'll gladly invite the guy sweeping the floor if he's a good person. Vice versa is the same. If that guy is just talking negativity while he's sweeping the floor, I don't want him in my life. But if that CEO is a very nice person, I want to invite him to my house. I want to be part of my family. I think it won't not be easy. I think it will be very hard to break away because if you learn about social media, they are much smarter than us. They have figured out how to get you to just, I can't stop. I can't, the dopamine, the chemicals going on in my brain. We don't have this thought. It just happens in the background. I just feel so good when I do this. And when I put my phone away, something's missing, right? So it's not easy. My wife, in her program, this week, the challenge every day is to report to each other, all the women in the sisterhood. They have to report their screen time to each other. Screenshot, and put it in the WhatsApp group. Mm-hmm. So imagine having that positive peer pressure of, I'm going to hold you accountable. You told me you were going to be under 2 hours today, complete time on a screen. Let's see what you can do, right? And challenge each other in that way. That's the only way. Unless you have super discipline and can do it on your own, there's very few people who could do that on their own, but you have to find the right community and start cutting out the people who aren't bringing that to your life. Because someone who doesn't care about people, why do you want them in your life? That's going to only bring you negativity.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like most of what you have accomplished really just were initiated with necessity. And I want to touch on this point because it's always impressive when I see you do shares or when I see you talk about your kids. Can you talk to us a little bit about the parenting angle of this? You did all of these things because you needed to. Well, your kids don't really need to do all of these things, right? But they do, from what I know. They're very driven. They are very accountable. How do you inject this level of building relationships and accountability and kindness to the next generation, to your kids, when they have so many distractions in front of them?
Yeah, we actively parent. We don't have them at home. We don't have a tablet to give them. So when they were 1 year old, 2 year old, 10, 18, we never got the easy button. We did not hit the easy button on parenting. We never got to say, just go sit in front of the TV for a few hours, or here's a tablet, or here's my phone. Go become another victim to this technology. I think technology is great, but I don't want my kids developing where this is their outlet. This is their only thing. Today I had a group of men working out at my house in the morning, and they were all impressed. When we were done working out, they came to tell me that my 10-year-old, my youngest, went out to the garage where we were about to start working out and shook every one of their hands and introduced himself. He's my youngest, he's 10 years old. So down the row, all four will do the same thing. If you visit my house, all of my kids will get up and will go say hi to you and greet you at the door. That's one example. That's all through active parenting. I mean, it starts as simple as we had kids because my wife and I are in love with each other for 22 years and we want to create more children, right? And have a fantastic world with them. And we thought that would be very rewarding early on, and it has been. They did not choose to come to this world, so we want to make it a good life for them. We don't want to make it an easy life. We don't. We've made them go through struggles. And these are artificial struggles in a controlled environment that are going to let them live a better life. We don't let our kids control us. From an early age, I read a phenomenal book on raising children and how to get them and this is a baby, almost a newborn, how to get them to enjoy being put down instead of yelling and crying and screaming and driving you crazy. I read the book, it took 3 days to implement, just like the book said. And at the end, everybody, and the book says it, when you implement all of this, everyone will say you're a lucky parent. That child was screaming in the middle of the night all night, and we implemented it. We did the work, and we put them down, gone, no problems. And we did that with all 4 of our kids. And then it went on. When a child didn't want to eat sweet potato, maybe that was the meal of the day, and the doctor said, no, that's a good one, give it to him. And we'd feed it to him, and he'd push it away. We wait a little bit, try again, push it away, try again, mix it with something else, try again. We never said, well, he doesn't like that. In fact, we had many nights where your dinner did not get eaten, that's your breakfast. So at 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, we could be cutting bell peppers, onions, anything. And we could say, hey, you want one? Any 4 of our children would have eaten a raw onion, a bell pepper. They did it every day. We'd give them these things so our kids eat everything. And I'm setting it up. These are the simple how to get them to lay in a bed and sleep all night and feel good about themselves and not wake up cranky, which will affect us if they're cranky, right? How to get them to eat properly, how to get them to behave properly, how to become independent. The biggest gift, the greatest gift I think we can give our children is independence. That at 16 years old, they feel like, I've got this. I can handle this. It gives them tremendous confidence. You know, I've got an 18-year-old who's about to graduate high school, but he's done 7 months in the Army Reserves already, served 7 months. In between junior and senior year, went and did 10 weeks of combat training, basic training, boot camp. Completed it. Sure, he had his ups and downs. Some of those letters were pretty depressing. I don't want to be here. They're treating us really rough. Mm-hmm. And then we'd respond. And the next one would be, I had a mind shift. I changed my way of thinking. I'm better. Thank you. That pushed me, right? We have a rule. We have a lot of rules. We live by rules. At 16 years old, you're financially independent in our house. You don't have to pay rent. But if you're going to drive, you're going to pay insurance. Your car, you're buying it. You want to go out with your friends? That's your money. We can teach our kids how to make a lot of money and how to create an amazing life and look for opportunities. And we have. And all our kids have gotten up to tens of thousands of dollars in the bank on their own. Mm-hmm. The 2 older ones. The younger ones are little. They've got a few $1,000s. And they all are entrepreneurial. And here's how we motivate them. Here's the beautiful thing. My kids will never watch this because they hear me talk all the time, right? Mm-hmm. So I could tell the truth here. My kids think there's no inheritance. And I like that. I like that they think that it's all going to charity. It's going to them. We give to charity, but it's going to them, and they don't know this. Mm-hmm. My kids think there's no college fund. Even though we have the money, we're not paying it for you. We'll pay for your college, mm-hmm. but we want to push you first. So you think there's no easy button. Mm-hmm. So my oldest, Army, he won't, and after that he's going to study, but it's with the GI Bill. It's covered. Mm-hmm. Our second is working really hard because he already got a three-quarter scholarship because of his SAT score, but he's 10 points away from 100% full ride scholarship here in South Florida at a university. He didn't study the first time he took the SATs because he thought he was going to ace it. And he needs 10 more points, and now he gets 100% scholarship, right? So guess what he's doing? He's getting ready for that. He had to pay for it. The school paid for the first one. He's got to pay for the second one because this is going to save him a lot of money. What he doesn't know is there is a backup plan. We'll help him out if he needs it. But I like instilling that need. What happens is we make a little bit of money, or we succeed, or some don't even have that success as parents, but they just want to make their kids' life easy. In the end, I haven't seen the case where that helps. I look at all the people who grew up around me, and the ones who had it rough, that woke them up and they pushed and became better people. And the ones who were handed everything, life's not so beautiful for them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's almost like the difference between instant gratification and delayed gratification, as I hear you explain what you have done with your kids and how you've really raised them. It's a very hard skill set to teach somebody. What is next for you now? Are you going to focus more on the brotherhood? Are you going to focus more on helping other individuals kind of acquire this mindset? What do you see yourself doing 5 years from now?
So I'm doing all of that. But I'll tell you about instant gratification. I'll tell you about something. We were at a circus, a small circus, maybe 15 years ago, 14 years ago. And we had 2 kids at the time, 2 boys. And when you got to the circus, you're sitting down early. They will let you ride the elephant. So we go, wow, the kids can go ride on the elephant. So we walk up, me and the 2 boys, my wife's waiting back, and we say, can they ride the elephant? They say, yeah, it's $10. And then I look at my boys, and one of them says, I want to ride the elephant. And I said, I'll give you $10 right now, and you can ride the elephant. Or when we get home, I'll give you $10 and you save it in your piggy bank. It's your choice. And one of them said, I'll take the $10 now. I want to get on that elephant. And it was one at a time on this one elephant. So he rode it, and he got off. And I said, was it worth it? And he says, I wish I had the $10 in my piggy bank. It wasn't that great. They just did a big circle, and he came back. So his brother says, I'll take the $10 for my piggy bank later. And that served as an example that they used for years. The one brother who had the discipline to put off the immediate gratification would always tell his brother, hey, when there was a temptation to spend money, he'd say, remember the elephant? And the brother would say, yeah, you're right. Let me wait. Mm-hmm. That one who learned to wait got to $30,000 in the bank while he's in high school, bought his own car, right? And the other one's doing phenomenal too. Yeah, and as far as what I want to do, I achieved some things, and I think I did well for where I came from to where I got. And I'm now driven in different ways, and it really is to help people. I want to see other people succeed. People who come visit our family and come to our house always say, what you guys are doing is so different. These kids, people walk into my house, and the 3 oldest have telephones, right? So they have a phone. They could play on the phone, and they do it. They're normal kids. They'll sometimes be on the phone. But sometimes people have walked in and said, 2 of your kids were playing chess. One was playing piano. The other one might have been on the phone. And then it rotates. They might be doing different things. They go, this is different. And I love that. I love being different. I love setting up my kids in a different direction. They're still totally normal and super social and friendly. So I'm not bringing up these weird kids that can't function. So that's the example with my family. And with men and women in our programs, we want to help them do similar things if they want to. But we have 31 things. So one day it may be about family and children, but the other challenge might be about your physical health or what you're eating or your discipline, your decision making. So that's what we want to do. Just impact people in all the ways that we can.
Mm-hmm. And if you could give one advice, Joel, to people who might be struggling, establishing these disciplines, because all discipline affects all discipline, right? As well as some of the challenges of life, the fast pace of life. What would be the one advice that you give to people who are having a difficult time?
Difficult time with that discipline?
With that discipline, correct.
I always find advice very difficult because my approach to advice, and I'll try to answer it, my approach to advice is a series of questions, and they're different every time. I don't have a form. I don't have a pamphlet. I don't have a way to work it through. It's, that'll spark curiosity. Like, tell me more about that. Where are you finding that show up in your life? Where are you missing the discipline? Let's say that they start off bad. The alarm goes on. It goes off in the morning, and they turn it off. Mm-hmm. And that was set at that 5:30 because they said, if I wake up at 5:30, I can make it to the gym, right? Well, you're already starting the day off wrong. You're starting your day with a nap. You woke up and know you're going to take a nap. Now, you have the flu, you have a really bad cold. I agree. Just stay home, rest, eat well, drink a lot of water, and get better. Maybe in a day or 2, you'll be back to get after it. Otherwise, there's no reason for it. And who could hold you accountable? Apparently, you're not doing it yourself if that person is not getting up. Because if they're not getting up to exercise, what else is missing, right? I think you said it. Discipline equals more discipline, right? Discipline in one thing, you should be in other things. I think it's sad when I see someone succeeding in life, but then they don't have the discipline to work on their marriage. My wife and I were just given a new challenge by Dr. Gary Chapman this week, personally, to every year read one book together on marriage and how to improve our marriage. But if I don't get up in the morning and I turn off that alarm, I'm probably not going to meet that goal of every year we're going to tackle that one thing together. And it could lead to other things, right? We are either dying in our marriage, in our life, in our discipline, in everything, or we're building it up. It's one or the other. So if that person is really having that problem in the morning getting up and it's carrying over to other parts of their day, I would challenge them to find an accountability partner. Mm-hmm. Find someone who's going to check in with them. Somebody who's going to maybe meet up at the gym. And hey, we're going to be there at 6 o'clock. So be up at 5:30. I'll see you at 6 at the gym. And now you can't let each other down. That's very powerful. If you're not doing it for yourself, then do it for someone else. How many of us men haven't said, if I can't lift this weight, my family dies? You know, I tell myself these stupid things all the time, but man, they work. I'll be in my swimming pool swimming laps. I go, if I don't get 2 more, some guy comes in and just steals my kids. Oh, I'll do 3 more, right? Find the motivation that works for you. Get an accountability partner. And then there's a lot more things I could say to that, but there's a start.
Wow, this was great, Joel. Thank you so much. Thank
My
you for
pleasure. It's
coming.
great talking to you.